for a while.
Yeah, my when we lived down there, October 1st, well, we would always go up to Guardsman's Pass and go look at the flowers because usually in August and September, there's a lot of these little purple flowers.
Yeah.
Just become alive up there. So when you get to the top of the pass, there's a little place you can pull off and park. And then we go up into the forest, we have a picnic, and then we go down through Park City and go to the little stores and then come back into the valley.
How fun.
And then with the first snow, we would drive up to Alta and have a snowball fight.
Awesome.
So here in Boise, you don't get to do that because there's Bogus Basin is the local ski resort, and it's more like a hill.
Yeah.
Than a mountain.
Almost all of my family's up in Boise area.
Yeah. Okay. So you've been here. You know what it looks like then.
Yeah. I think it's still beautiful.
Oh, it's a gorgeous city.
Mm-hmm.
It just does not have the mountains like Salt Lake does.
Salt Lake, yeah.
And you got to go up to McCall or up into the Sawtooth to get up in there and see those things.
Yeah.
Right. 3 more minutes and we'll start.
You're still sick?
I've just got that cough. When I was a kid, I got cat scratch fever. I got really ill after a cat bit me, basically. Very ill. And from that point forward, I had to be put on. I didn't use nebulizers. This is the early 80s.
Oh.
But I was always on penicillin and the little albuterol things for bronchitis, pretty severe bronchitis twice a year. And coughs always linger. That's what they do. It usually takes.
Which is why your teeth are so shitty, just like mine.
Yep. Yeah, I get to
use of penicillin in our use that makes our teeth so shitty.
I gotta get this back molar done, and I've got to get this one kept. So and then I got to get the implant done. So I got 5, 6.
Woohoo! Yeah. Yep. They're just now, and it's not a just now discovering this thing, but they're starting to linking the overuse of antibiotics to shitty teeth.
And teeth. Yeah. My teeth are shitty because after Mom died, there was no idea of taking children to the dentist or the doctor unless there was a real problem. Everything was done on an emergency basis. So just before I graduated high school, I spent 2.5 weeks at the dentist every day from 8 to 10 doing work on my mouth. That was fun. Every single tooth has had work. Most of them have been reconstructed. So it's.
Yep.
I'll be very easy to identify if I vanish, guys. Just let the police know that.
Well, to that though, I had dental work done every 6 months because that was something my parents were really they stressed on it, and due to genetics and overuse of antibiotics, my teeth I don't have a tooth in my head that doesn't have something
in it.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm hoping they'll be able to just grow new teeth soon because before I reach the realm of dentures. So
yeah.
And they're getting close. Okay. See if anybody else shows up while we're doing this. We're going to give this about 20-ish minutes, and then we'll be done. So there's, I'm just going to run through the questions or the things that were posted in the thread, and then you guys can remark on them. And then if anything you want to ask at that point when we're done, you have the floor. So first thing that comes up is Miss Jackie asking, calming down, relaxing, some kind of trust in life. So it sounds like anxiety and then trusting life. And what I would do in this situation, first of all, is learn how to regulate the nervous system. And one of the easiest ways to regulate the nervous system is to do this. This was discovered by a man named Mark Waldman. He is a neuroscientist out of San Diego, California, and he specializes in mindfulness, trauma, and how trauma affects the brain, and then how mindfulness affects that kind of thing. And he discovered that if you have anxiety, fear, or pain, and you do something that is pleasurable, you'll actually disrupt the brain's association with pain and help the nervous system calm down. So that's one way you can do that. Because anxiety is a heightened state of awareness. You're hypervigilant. And the nervous system only calms itself down when it thinks it's safe. So doing this tells it it's safe. And the second thing you can do, if you really want to calm it down fast, is yawn. If you yawn, you're telling your body you're safe. And your body will calm down. Long-term relaxation requires a rehabilitation of the way we interpret danger and fear, the way we think, and then dealing with any underlying unresolved trauma. Because trauma is stuck in the body. It is a nervous system energy, per se, that hasn't had a chance to go through its completion cycle, reach closure. And that process can be excited and closed in a number of different ways. EMDR is one way. The closure technique is another way. A process I'm developing called SAR is another way of accomplishing that. And that stands for sensory awareness and release. And then there's, there's somatic processing. There's tapping, which is also known as EFT. There is TRE, which was mentioned by Rosalind. Most people don't actually know about TRE, and TRE is a pretty interesting in-body shaking process. You get the body to move into a state of shaking. This is based on Peter Levine's work on how trauma and how animals move from what's called free state to relaxed open state. And most animals go through a shaking process. And most of us have probably experienced when we're really intense, we shake. And that's our body trying to shake this energy out, get it out. And so you can deliberately trigger this using TRE. And it's actually pretty effective. There's science behind it, so it's backed up that way. But it's also based on the idea that the nervous system has a process in which it needs to go through in order to accomplish that closure. My own process is closure technique and SAR, and those are based on the same principles, except we're using the mind to accomplish that outcome in a similar way that EMDR or somatic processing does. So now, a trust in life. This is kind of a huge topic because we have been taught or conditioned by society to believe that life should be trusted and that life should be safe, or that life should be a certain way. And this actually builds into a concept that's part of the Brilliance of You material I'm developing. In that is a idea called congruency. And congruency says to be in alignment with or in harmony with something. Oftentimes, because of this conditioning about looking at things outside of ourselves to be the source of our peace, to be the source of our confidence, or to trust something outside of ourselves. When that inevitably fails, we have distrust in it. So to fix this idea of kind of trust in life, we actually need to start going inward and aligning with a trust within ourselves. A trust that, 1, we can handle what shows up. 2, there is good that will show up. 3, if we're persistent, we can have that brilliance in our life, that goodness and that fulfillment. So life has goodness for us, and it's going to have some shit too. It's normal for that. And we've gone through an abnormal experience, so our brains are conditioned to look for the abnormal shit and then amplify it if it appears that it's there. But what I'd encourage you to do, Miss Jackie, is to move back into a trust in your own resiliency, your own goodness, and a trust in the goodness that does exist in life. Because life itself isn't going to take care of us. We are. And if we build proper and healthy support networks around us, it becomes a lot easier to deal with the natural powerlessness we have with life. Turn your trust into you, and turn your trust into recognizing goodness along with the shit. Because I'm not a fan of positivity thinking because it tends to exclude the negative. what I'm going at here is when we build an idea of called inclusive thinking, bad, terrible, or painful things have happened, good, joyful things have happened. And when we want to really emphasize a happier, healthier life, we have to actually emphasize the positive, not to the negation of the negative, but to the preference of positive, so that our brains become more associated with, okay, positivity is normal. Positive things are normal. They're not the abnormal of the experience. And then the negative is also normal, but it doesn't carry the sting, the impact, the weight, or the meaning we put on it. So that's how I've worked with it. There's a lot more to it, but that's kind of like my gist-y answer there to that one. And do you guys have anything you want to say on that, Valerie or Katie or anybody else?
I don't.
Okay. So how about you?
No, I don't.
Okay. So let's go to Amanda's. Now, let's see. Yeah, it's the same thing. Relaxing the muscles, and because Amanda's deaf and there's not going to be subtitles on this, I remarked in there with the TRE. Yoga is another good way of doing this. I do Qigong, and I've done Tai Chi with this as well. Cyclical breathing, somatic feeling, those kind of things will help with helping us get a little farther outside the background radiation of anxiety. So if you know much about the universe has this thing called background radiation. And what it is, it's a result of the Big Bang. It's just kind of there in the background. And when you turn a TV on or a radio on, you hear static. That's one of the results of the background radiation. Well, anxiety is kind of like that static in our mind. It's back there doing its thing, kind of gnawing a little bit at us. We hear it there, we hear it here and there. And when we start to tune into that channel, objectively, we can start making more distance from it. And that brings in more silence. And then we can raise, it's going to sound weird, raise the volume on the silence. And we become more and more relaxed and more safe being independent or separate from that anxiety. Because when we really realize that life is actually more boring and safe than it isn't, we start to, that's when the anxiety really shows up, and then we can let that go. Because our abuse, our trauma, and our conditioning, our experience has given us this idea that the world is dangerous with little pockets of safety in it. So if you think of it like life is a big pot, and in it we have poured the stew of danger. And in that stew of danger are little floaty, like little things we've put into it that we would call safety. When in reality, life is full of boredom and safety with pockets of danger. When we start to see that in life, then we start to see how our thinking is really occupying or creating that anxiety. And that thinking is coming from our experience. And that's an expression of that background anxiety. And separation we can get from that using mindfulness and meditation, which are scientifically proven to work that way. And they take persistence, along with regulating the nervous system and doing some of the physical actions like yoga, cyclical breathing, movement. It breaks that down, and we get a lot more peace. So that's what I would do there. Any thoughts on that, you guys?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Good.
So Jen,
Actually, that's what I teach pretty much every day to most of my pain clients or my patients. So right now, the theory of pain is that pain starts in the brain.
Yep.
So exactly like anxiety does. And if we can calm the pain through breathing, mindfulness meditation, movement, it's the same factors into that. So yeah, totally agree with what you're saying. There's evidence-based research out there that proves these points.
Yeah, there's research that shows that we can intensify or nullify pain by perception.
Yep.
And very, very important to understand when it comes to regulating our body. Our thoughts are very, very powerful on it, because the brain does not discern between thought and material reality. Everything is real to the brain. So it's really important what we feed the brain and then
And it's all based, all of this pain, anxiety is all based in fear, which
Yep.
is
Yeah, it's not based in real danger. It's based
Yeah.
in the anticipation of danger.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
Oh. Yep. See, guys, I'm not crazy. Not crazy. So, because some people think I am. They're like, "How are you qualified to teach on this?" I'm like, "Well, when I went through it, too, I've got years of training, not classical training, but training that worked in it." But so okay. So Jenna says, just going for something instead of not trying to hold back yourself back because you're scared. Okay. So just going for it. Now, I'm going to create a context around, because we don't have a context around what you're looking at here. Okay. Yeah. Holding yourself to the impossible perfection standard and how to stop that. Yeah. Feel the fear, do it anyway is one approach. Mel Robbins, who is a very, very well-known life coach, she has a process called 5-second rule. She says, you get an idea, you get an action that comes with that idea, you count from 5 to 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you act. That's how you do it. Don't pursue action with willpower, because you'll burn out. The idea here is to act and chase the feeling with your action. So if you want to feel confident, start acting as you would if you were feeling confident in that moment, and you'll actually end up feeling confident most of the time. So that's kind of an active approach to getting out of procrastination. The other thing, though, to look at is to gauge your fear. And you need to understand that fear isn't always wrong. It's trying to send you some kind of information about what you're anticipating. And so, like, Mark Waldman has a process. He calls it the crap board. So a lot of you have dealt with like The Secret, vision boards, things like that. He's like, well, put a crap board up. And the crap board is everything that could possibly go wrong with this thing you're about to do. And allow yourself the chance to acknowledge the possibility, appreciate the expertise your brain's trying to demonstrate for you, and then you can create plans of action for those consequences and outcomes, and that can help you gauge your fear better. Now, there's a caveat to this, because if we have trauma brain, our brain's going to come up with some of the most impressive, scary things in the world. Give you an example. My brain, because of trauma dealing with responsibility and doing this kind of business, doing any business really, that I have a proven track record in, but still my brain does this. It's like, Marshall, one day somebody's going to just come in here and kill you. And it's not even rational. Not rational at all. But it does that, because that's what trauma brain does. And so I have to be very realistic with the fear, right? So if one of your fears, Jenna, is like the world's going to burn down and nobody's going to love me, that while is a powerful fear, and the emotion is legitimate in the idea that it exists, that outcome isn't. Because again, speaking from experience, there's going to be at least one person that loves you, always. And you'll find out who that is if that were to ever happen. And having been through something that was very close to that, I learned really quick that's how I know that. But generally, our fears aren't going to happen, especially if we're being pragmatic. Now, if you're running a business or you're going to go out there and do something big, look at realistic risks and gauge for those. But fears, a lot of times, are their projections about deeper things that need to be looked at. Places where we need to put love and appreciation and validation into, so we can boost our confidence in our ability to handle what we're taking on, as well as give ourselves permission to fail and still be lovable, fail and still be supported. So I would recommend looking at your support network and make sure you have people you can lean on when the challenges show up or when failure shows up, because both will occur during this experience you're looking at taking on. So I would go that direction. This is something I've learned in running several businesses and doing a lot of things that went against the grain of my culture and my upbringing. So a support network is essential to really being able to thrive. And that support network should be built in friendship first, and then primary friend, and then like a significant other, things like that. Okay. Any remarks on that, guys?
Nope, not for me.
Nope.
Not for me.
All right, spirit fingers. So, and then we got Renee. I'm gonna go with Renee. Lawrence, letting go. Even with all the bad that I know and the good that I feel when he's gone, I can't still break the connection hope I feel. This is that codependent fantasy. It is a function of both attachment, but more specifically love addiction and the idea of trauma bonding. So I highly recommend looking at and watching the YouTube video there. The Heal course I run has the tenets, that the process of breaking down this addiction and restoring connection back to yourself, because addiction is solved through connection, and that first connection has to come back to us. And you have to understand how trauma worked with what's called attachment. And attachment's natural for everybody. And when we understand that the reason you're really powerfully attached is because that person carries a lot of meaning about your value as a human being. And that's not wrong. I'm not a big fan of making people wrong about any of this, because actually all of this is about survival. And so part of you is like, oh, he's gone. I've got to get him back so I can survive, so I can feel loved, so I can be valued, so I can thrive, so I can be myself. So healing this is about going deep into both the shame that drives codependency, integration of that love, coming to know yourself, but also managing the pain of loneliness, internalized loneliness, and the chemical aspect of this, because your brain's hooked on the dopamine, it's hooked on the serotonin and the oxytocin and the adrenaline that comes with the trauma bond. And so reach out to me if you want more information or assistance with that, because that takes reinforcement actively from people like me or others that are specialized in this, as well as community, because you're not alone. There's several of us in this group that have dealt with this. I have dealt with it personally. That's why I know how to navigate it, because when we break free of it, then we realize that connection is actually calm, stable, and reliable, and we're still safe if they leave, because we don't lose who we are, because we didn't depend on that person to define who we are or to give us permission to be valid in some way. We've internalized our validity. We've made it our own. So that's what I would be looking at there. Any thoughts on that, Valerie?
Yeah, can you, will you do the link? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Will you put the link to the YouTube thing that you were talking about, the trauma bond?
Yeah, it's, in fact, I'll just tag you in it right now.
Okay.
Valerie.
I think everybody that is codependent, like you said, that they won't survive without that person.
Yeah.
Or that person won't survive without them.
Yep. It's essential components of the codependent fantasy that they need you. And you need them to need you so you can get what you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's about securing the supply of our validation. And it really, this is in reality, it's the same kind of approach a narcissist uses in securing us as their supply for attention and validation too. We both need each other that way. That's why there's that interchange going on, except they don't care how you feel. You care only how they feel. See?
Okay. Yeah, because there's been times I've even thought, well, maybe I am the narcissist one in here because it's so similar.
Yeah, what we have to understand with narcissism, and I see this a lot lately, is people conflate narcissism with attachment, addiction, codependency. Narcissism is 4 specific traits, and if you go to DSM, there's more traits. But it's grandiose thinking, lack of empathy, chronic victimhood, lack of accountability. Those are the 4 I run with because they're the most common ones. It has nothing to do with being addicted to somebody. It has nothing to do with even abusive traits, because there's plenty of abusers that are not narcissists. But not all narcissists are abusers, or not all abusers are narcissists. So we really have to be conscious about the definition of difference there. But fundamentally, you're not a narc because you empathize, you're willing to take accountability, you're changing, you're self-aware, so.
Okay.
You ask the question. A narcissist, there's no problem with me. Why? The question's never going to cross their mind.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, it's irrational to them. But yeah, love addiction is really about securing our safety so that we feel like we'll have a supply of love and validation so that we can go and grow into the world. And this is happening because of an aborted, or what's called inward attachment to our primary source of love. And that would have been one or both of our parents at some point. And because of that, how that was trauma, there was trauma to that bond, it stopped the maturation or maturing process of that attachment. Because around the age of 5, we start to transfer the attachment from our parents to ourselves because we become what's called individuated or differentiated from the other person. And then we begin building reliable, stable bonds of connection with people that are healthy attachment. They become reliable to us in certain ways. And then as we mature and we move into teenage years, we become teenagers, we want to transfer. What we do is, now that we've internalized this attachment to ourselves, we're able to then create safe bonds with other human beings outside of our primary bond with our parent. And that's how healthy bonding people work. Well, we had a trauma that happened which inhibited that growth. So when you attach to someone, you meet somebody that's really, the love bombing of the narcissist is making us feel everything we have ever wanted to feel and hear and be for somebody. Our brain goes, maybe we're safe to attach again. And so we attach. Now we're attached, and then we start to lean on them like we would a parent, looking for more validation, feedback, assurance. But we have an incomplete identity, so we absorb part of them as ourselves, and then we get in trouble because that's how we lose ourselves. We heal this by taking that attachment and returning it back to us through the embodiment process and heal, along with the other steps of dealing with the chemical aspect, because your brain's high, and it's gonna do this for the rest of your life. And what I mean by that is, you're going to meet somebody and you'll get high. That's your signal to go, I need to slow down, stop idealizing them, and get to know who this person really is. And that process gets easier and easier and easier as you practice it. But it's something you always need to be aware of, because your brain's wired this way, and it's very easy for it to be triggered, because the brain loves pleasure, so it's going to emphasize that for us. But that doesn't mean you can't have healthy relationships, and it doesn't mean you won't. You will. You just got to be aware of how you work. So, all right. So how to stop or curtail ruminating thoughts. Now, rumination for codependence comes in a couple different forms. We ruminate over the pain. We ruminate over the loss. We ruminate in the fantasy. If they just do this, Can't wait for them to do that. Oh, this thing could happen. They could do this. I could do this, and they could feel that way. Rumination is a signal of unmet need, in my opinion. I like to use it that way. A lot of people are like, well, you interrupt the ruminating thought with a different thought. You move on and distract yourself with something else. There's a need that wants attention when it's coming up repeatedly through those kind of thoughts. So detect the need and then get that need met in healthy ways. And you won't have the rumination because the need is met. So if you think of rumination like a mental hunger, run with it that way. That's the easiest way. If you're really intense in a ruminating thought, then once you become aware of ruminating thoughts, you are no longer lost in ruminating thoughts, and you can return your attention back to the present. So a long-term approach here would be to adopt a mindfulness practice. And I recommend either a breath awareness mindfulness practice or what's called an object or wall steering mindfulness practice. You do that 5 to 15 minutes a day, and it'll help a lot, because if you start observing your thoughts as thoughts and not as truth, reality, or fact, you will actually stop ruminating because you won't be lost in it anymore. So I go that route. Other than meeting the need. Meet the need, no more. The thought doesn't need to be there anymore. So, hi, Valerie, this is yours, Yay. So everything. So you're getting all sorts of good stuff out of this. Cool. And then we got Ginger. Now, I spoke, just before this started, we had live mentoring in the HEAL course and in the Thrive Young Codependency All Access Pass live mentoring pass. So long. We actually talked about this, and I'm thinking I'll just post that live mentoring hour up in the group so you guys can see it and see what happens in that, because there's some very good information in that, because there's a lot that goes into what Ginger's expressing here and what it takes to deal with that. So, okay, Rosalind. Integration techniques for when my IFS is not in agreement, said decision. Rosalind's talking about a system called integrative family systems, and what that system does is it posits that we have many selves within us. I call them aspects of self. So if you were to work with me on trauma, and we were to do like the closure technique or SAR, we would be calling forward an aspect of self that has a message and has a need, and then we're going to get it. Its needs met. IFS works in a similar manner to that. So I'm going to kind of interpolate, or interpret or amalgamize or kind of mold things to this point of view. See if I can get it to translate for Rosalind. But integration, if there's not an agreement, there's resistance, and if there's resistance, there's a message, and typically it's about a need, and the need will usually be expressed as I don't want X. Then, which means, okay, if I don't want X, what would I like instead? And that'll give us the I want Y, and then we can get that met. That's how integration, that's how you can get out of that what would you call it in that system? I'm just going to sell stalemate in that integration for you. So find out the need, and don't push for integration. Don't push to make things work, guys. Healing will backfire 100% of the time if you apply pressure. For the first 4 years of the work, I've been at this for 10 years. The first 4 years was all in healing work, deep healing work. And every time resistance came up, people pushed against it, they lost. And I lost, man. I did that to myself all the time. When you become accepting of what's there, more receptive, you understand, accept, and allow what is present with you, then integration can happen in a way that is deep and permanent and resilient for you. Because you don't want to create resentment within inside yourself about having gotten past the thing because you force yourself to. That just backfires on you. So relax, give yourself the time and space that this aspect of yourself needs before it can integrate. And find out what it needs so you can get it to it, and then finally achieve agreement with it. Okay, any remarks there, you guys? Nothing? Nopers. Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not surprised, Kate. You've heard a lot of this.
Well, no, I mean, I'm just trying to think if I had anything to add that would be of value.
No, that's
but,
good. Yeah.
No.
That works.
It would be that it's, you know.
Okay. Okay, so Claire, how not to feel sick or anxious when criticisms come. I'm actually working on a course for the Brilliance in You that deals with perfectionism and congruency. And it deals with how we address criticism, because that sick feeling, that anxious feeling, is you internalizing the criticism is true. And then your body, with those two signals, is telling you this isn't true. Anything that's heavy isn't true. Anything that's light is true. That's kind of a principle from a system called access consciousness. And caveat here, guys. Truth for you, not truth for anybody else, and not absolute truth. So truth means, in this context, it's true for me right now. So if eating a hot dog is heavy, then it's true that that's not what I want right now. But that doesn't mean it won't be true in 20 minutes or tomorrow or next Tuesday. So that's a way you can start navigating that. I imagine, I can believe that you're exhausted, and it's been an extremely difficult year, especially if you're living in a system that's giving you a lot of criticism. Now, that sick and anxious feeling can also be the echo of trauma, because the way criticism has been used, it's been used to control, hurt, and to diminish us. And in healthy dynamics, there isn't criticism, there's complaint, and they're very different. A complaint says, I don't like how this feels. Can we do something different here? I don't like how this is working. Can we talk about how this can be changed so that it works this way? Because I really want to feel this way. What do you think? Because the complaints are typically about experiences that the relationship is experiencing. Criticisms are typically about what you should do so they don't feel a certain way. And a lot of times the difference between a criticism and a complaint is how it's communicated. So you've probably got some trauma there coming up too, with that sick feeling, and working that out. So, and I've been working on a criticism map, because we have to qualify who gave us the criticism, whether the criticism is valid or not. And I've got it halfway done. The visual doesn't work right for me, and I'm waiting for it to click. So I'll be posting that when that does. But criticism is valid, a valid concern. It's a valid thing to start to deal with. But I'd also regulate your nervous system, because you got that anxiety there. And the antidote to criticism is appreciation and affirmation of yourself. So you might want to take a look at the relationships that are criticizing you and see if these are really healthy people for you. And maybe, if you can, begin the process of either confronting it and seeing if the relationship will change, or consider exiting the relationship and going and building more healthy, supportive relationships for you. Reach out to me if you have any questions, you want some more assistance with that. Okay, so we're at the end of that string. Do you two have anything you want to shoot at? We've got about 10 minutes left.
So, to the criticism thing, and I don't know if I'm in a good spot with my cell service, so let me know if you can't hear me.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you.
So, interestingly enough, I'm to a point in my healing where criticism is actually quite helpful to me. I actually went to my it was my 90-day review at 6 months. It was kind of funny. It was very late. And I went in to speak with my boss, and for probably the first time in my adult life, I didn't go in as a complete wreck.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good review. It was a really excellent review, in fact. And you know, he was very complimentary of my work and really had nothing bad to say. And that I was prepared to get a little criticism. I actually was prepared for, hey, this needs to improve and this needs to improve, because I've never worked for a company with that's accredited at this high of accreditation for it.
And that I wanna pause it for a second, because there's a really important thing you've done here. Effective criticism, one is if someone is healthy, typically you're going to say, I have some feedback and I would like to contribute it. Are you open to feedback today? So number one, it's consensual. Two, you were ready. You volunteered for it.
Right.
And that's different. And number three, you said something that most people probably didn't catch, but it was about your performance, not about who you are or your character.
Right.
And this is really important, because if someone came up to me and said, Marshall, you're a total asshole, and I don't know this person from Steve or Adam down the road or whatever, I'm going to completely dismiss that because it's unwarranted. But if somebody, for instance, if you two came up to me and said, Marshall, you're being an asshole, I'm going to stop and listen, because one, you've had experience with me. Two, you have, I might be an authority in your eyes, so you have the balls to stand up and say, hey, you're being kind of a dick here. I'm going to take that as a check. I'm like, yeah, I need to pay attention here. So we have to qualify whom we're taking criticism from when it becomes personal, because 99% of the time it's not valid. Valid criticism will come in the form of a complaint of, I don't like how this thing is happening, whatever it might be. It won't be, you're stupid.
Right.
It will not attack your character, but it will say, I don't like how you do this, Marshall. It makes me feel unsafe. Well, that's a valid complaint. Let's fix it, because I care about how you feel. So,
yeah, and I mean, so conversely, I get like an email from my ex-husband, within 30 minutes of this meeting with my boss, and he's just ripping me up one side and down the other. And I was able to just look at this email and go, who are you? Who do you matter to me? Like, you're the parent of my son, but screw you,
And he's been proven not to be a reliable, integral person who cares about you.
Right.
See, that's the difference. I trust that you would care about my well-being, personally, professionally, at least. And so you call me out if I was being a dumbass.
Yeah.
Right. And I trust that. But if my parents came to me and said, Marshall, you're a real dick, I'd be like, cool. It seems like I'm succeeding there. I hope you work that out. Sounds like that matters to you, because you don't have any grounds in my world anymore. You're no longer considered as a trustworthy source of perspective in the world. So.
Exactly. Yeah. But I feel like as you heal, as you become able to see yourself as a whole person, as a almost as you begin to parent the child that wasn't parented, and offer that love to that person, criticism becomes less and less an issue.
Yep. We actually begin to accept our faults, our limitations. We're like, oh yeah, I'm fine screwing up, because we're whole. And that's part of wholeness, guys. It's not about perfection. It's about congruency. And congruency includes a lot of failure and a lot of limitation.
Right. And then the resilience piece also kind of clicks in too, where even if we're not perfect, even if we do fail, it's not the end.
It's not fatal.
It's not fatal. Yeah.
Because we're loved for who we are.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting meeting for me, because I got done and I kind of, I was like, oh, well, all right. That was not painful in any way, shape, or form. That was actually quite interesting. Okay.
Yeah. See, awesome. That's it's not personal. And this is something that's really important to think about. we have the power and the ability to choose what we internalize and what we don't. If we externalize something, we're projecting. If we internalize it, we're making it really personal. But if we depersonalize it, it means that's over there. It's in them. That's theirs. And then I can make you or I, whoever's involved, can make an effective decision about what they want with it.
Right.
So sounds like that's huge because you're free, right?
Yeah.
And
well,
how does that impact your confidence?
Well, it was interesting because the confidence level, I guess, has for me, as I guess in a work setting, my confidence has grown a lot. Just in the past 6 months, it's grown a lot. But I think it's also because I feel like I'm, educating myself a little bit better, and I'm not just running through the motions of my job. I'm actually pushed a lot in this job, which is good for me.
Yeah.
But it did help my confidence because I thought, you know what, I'm not just getting lip service either. I'm not getting lip service compliments, which I hate.
Right.
I hate that, I want to hear, you're a good practitioner, your patients love you, you're actually making a difference, and you're saving the company money. This is really great.
Right.
So,
well, does it do the fact that you would get critical feedback, or what we call constructive feedback, does that boost your sense of trust in that person when they give you positive feedback? Yeah. Healthy people they care about us, and so when they give feedback, it's not about them getting something, it's usually us winning. Sometimes it's exclusively you winning. If I was coaching you, then it would be you winning. But if it's a relationship, then it's us winning.
Right.
So. But
I do notice that because I feel more confident in receiving criticism or receiving feedback, that I'm more willing to be less critical in my own feedback of others. Like even, at home, I'll say, hey, are you willing to hear this feedback that I have? Can I talk to you about this right now? Or is this something that you don't want to hear right now? Or, this is really important for this person that you consider doing this way, This would help this person do this better. So, instead of like, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? The typical blame, shame game.
Yeah. Blame, shame, and martyrdom. Yeah, no, you're on target, because we start giving people more generosity, or positive regard that way, and there's not that intensity of fight or flight trigger. So we're not shutting down the brain. We're more like, we can deal with this. Let's be a little constructive with it. So I love that, because that's on target. Okay. How about you, Valerie? Anything you want to do with the next 6 minutes? Before the class starts? All right. Okay. So that's our little mentoring this week. We do this frequently every week in the Thrive Beyond Codependency system, specifically around HEAL. Happens twice a week, Sundays and Tuesdays. So that's kind of a taste of what I do with clients and what I do with my students. So we're going to do this a little more, have some more fun with it. If you guys have other questions, just feel free posting them in the group. Thank you guys for showing up and contributing. I appreciate you guys. And remember that you're worth loving, you're worth knowing, and you're worth keeping. And we'll see you guys online soon. Okay? You guys have.
Bye.
Bye-bye.